Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. All right, I've got Kevin Martin. He is an agent, director, and business development for JCK Sports Group. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
My pleasure. Give me some background, some color on you, and then bring out what you're doing in this industry to completely set it on its head.
So, a little bit of background about myself is I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally. Born in Chicago, raised in Milwaukee. Played basketball my whole life, and when I was done playing, I had to find a steady paycheck, and with doing so, I volunteered my time to helping kids in the community, AAU programs, things of that nature. And before I knew it, I said I never wanted to leave the court. So, kind of to speed that up, I get into sports management, and I'm trying to figure out what is my niche in sports still. I don't want to coach because it's high pressure, and I don't want to yell at kids all the time. And with that being said, I found a way to integrate my business skills with that of the NBA and FIBA and become an agent and say, hey, I can help kids live out their lifelong dream. And I get the privilege of still being around the game of basketball, which I love so much and has done so much for me and my family.
Getting into that industry sector is not an easy thing, is it? Tell us about that.
So there is, it's kind of like the pink elephant. No one knows what it is or exactly an agent does. No one really knows an agent until you meet them,
Right.
And so with that being said, the challenging part was going through the process of building clientele, becoming more credible, and having your name out there. Because as you can imagine, in this industry, there's a lot of big players out there that have come before me. Mm-hmm. And so I just had to stick to my guns, develop best practices, and do those things over and over again, and earn the trust of those players and those clients that I represent today.
What kind of clients do you represent?
So there's twofold. We represent guys who play in the NBA, and we also represent clients that play in Europe, Italy, Germany. I mean, you name it, wherever there's a 94-foot court in basketball and refs in between, we can get a guy to that country to play.
Tell our audience what the one significant thing is that hit you coming up and getting your career launched as an agent in the NBA. Something that people come after you can use as an inspiration.
I would definitely say you should never compromise your integrity. Be a person of high quality, high character, and do the right things. And if you do the right things for your clients, I guess the next step is that the business will come and guys will trust you more. So building that brand of trust, loyalty, and integrity, it speaks volumes to some of these kids and their families.
What are some of the challenges that are faced by guys in the industry and people who are trying to make a name for themselves, whether it's an agent or it's talent, it's actually the player?
So you're going to deal with a lot of guys who have this, I would say, an inflated sense of ego or naive confidence at times, and you got to know how to kind of separate that from reality and be honest with the guy. I mean, let's face it, if everyone could play in the NBA and get those $1 million checks, everyone would. But it's not that easy. You got to do things the right way. There's a lot of times where, you got to get up and work when no one else is working. There's a mantra I like to use. It's in my office at home. It says, outwork the work. And it's quite simple in theory, but at the end of the day, who's willing to go out there, get up at 5 in the morning and do some things to better yourself or your game, do things for your body, stuff like that. So you have to separate yourself.
Tell me about the challenges that you faced and overcame to get to the point that you are now.
I'll tell you, starting off, it wasn't as easy. The challenges I faced was a lot of college coaches didn't necessarily know who I was. They were used to dealing with certain agents that they knew for a long time, even agents that represented them or other coaches. So to have a new kid on the block to say, hey, I can do this and I can do it well, it wasn't as easy as it sounded. I got a lot of doors slammed in my face. I got a lot of unreturned messages, and guys didn't pick up the phone until I landed some substantial clients that did what they were supposed to do, and we did it the right way. And before you knew it, coaches were reaching out to me. So those challenges of just starting out, I mean, you're going to bump your head. There's going to be mistakes made. You're not perfect, but are you willing to accept that, embrace that challenge, and then overcome it?
What about the inside game, if you will, the people you deal with, the players? You've got to be able to be, their mom, their dad, their teacher, their priest.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You get it all rolled up into one, because once these people get out there, none of them they're not ready for the sharks that start circling.
Yeah.
How do you work with the players to make sure that they don't walk out and next thing you know, they're a wasteland? Somebody's taking advantage of them, because that happens.
That happens a lot, and quite honestly, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But with that being said, there have been examples when I've had guys, kind of compare themselves to other guys who were represented by different agencies, and so there's this measuring stick, right? Okay, my agent can do this for me. My agent can get me this amount of money, but the one thing, internally that I always harness is that, I'm not going to be that guy to compromise my integrity. I have 4 kids, 4 beautiful daughters, and a lovely wife, and so I'm used to, kind of giving instruction to kids, and these are young men who are, finding themselves, and so I've been where they've been at. I've gone through some of the challenges and grew up in some of the areas they've come from, and so I'm able to kind of reach them or relate to them in a different capacity that some agents, would probably couldn't.
What are some of the challenges that the players face that they need to man up to be able to make it in the industry? Because it's not all just about talent. There's business acumen, and then there's ethics involved.
Oh, yeah. Very good point. So I would say that a lot of guys struggle with accountability. In college, you got a GA, which is a grad assistant coach, or you have a assistant coach, reaching out to you, waking you up. You have tutors telling you when to come in and do your homework and be with the group. When you get to the pros, there's no one waking you up.
They expect you to know it all. Get out and drive.
Get out and drive. I mean, it's like sharks were born swimming. So, these guys, they have to understand. And what a big piece of what I can deliver to them through that process from college training until they go on to their first job is I try to instill in them a work ethic. Okay, you should stick to this schedule. There are guys that have come before you and they said this was the most successful practice in the way they did things, and this might help you. Stay away from the club scene, stay away from the glitz, the glamour, and things of that nature, and just focus on your craft, because at the end of the day, that's going to keep you employed.
It will. What about after the career? I mean, do you help people guide themselves into, like, okay, it's not going to last forever.
Right.
The body gets old. You're going to slow down a little bit. You got to think about your life after sports. Does that come into play in the overall grooming and guidance that you bring to the table?
Exactly. So what we do at JCK Sports Group is we pair guys with mentors. And so if a kid comes in and they sign with us out of college and they say, I got my degree in sports management, don't know quite what I want to do, maybe be a coach, a trainer, something to that effect. We pair them with some assistant coaches in the off season and say, hey, sit down with this guy, talk to this coach, get some best practices from them, get some interning. And we do a very good job at JCK Sports Group with pairing guys with peers in that industry to kind of help them along the way so that they see the other side when basketball is done.
Exactly. All right, we're about out of time on our interview here today, but I want you to come back. I want to talk to you more
Happy
about
to come back.
Please do. And then, but before we go, tell our audience something that they need to look out for to find really the difference between somebody that's going to be a good agent for them and somebody that's not.
Gotcha. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the agency or the representation that you and your kid signs with understands that they have to be a priority. You don't want to go to an agency where you're one of 1,000. You got to go with what's the right fit for you. Do these guys prioritize development? Do they prioritize telling the truth? And you'll have to see a client roster. You want to see a client roster of who they've represented in the past that is probably relevant to your kid, the same type of upbringing or the same style of play, and see how well they did with that particular kid and compare it to your son or daughter.
Kevin, thanks for being a guest on
Thanks
today's
for
show.
having me.
My pleasure. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.